How the LaRue Stakes were lost. Pardon me for disturbing you, sir, but there's a little fellow here who's called about a dozen times to see you. McMaster stood in the doorway of Mr. Bennett's study. We've sent him away again and again, but he always returns. He won't tell us what he wants, says he must see you, as it is very important. He's a little English lad, I think, and he has one of your cards the style you used when you were crossed last fall. He says his name is Hodge. Yes, sir, if you please. Billy Hodge. And little Billy, who had followed the secretary noiselessly up the stairway, struggled to the front. Well, my little man, said Mr. Bennett, smiling down at him over his shoulder, what do you want to see me for? And where did you get this card? It's one you gave my dad, sir, over in England. And he was a jockey, if you please, sir, and he were coming to ride for you. Oh, yes, I remember. And where is your father? He's dead, sir. He hadn't been well a year, sir, and the steamer doctor said he had trained finer than he could stand, and he were buried at sea. And are you out here all alone, without any friends? Only mother, if you please, sir. I'll be having to support her now. That's so you will, said Bennett with a shade of amusement, as courteously concealed as if he had been discussing golf with the Chinese ambassador. And what is your particular profession? I haven't none, sir. But if you please, sir, father always said I was handy with the horses. You inherited it, I presume. It's hard to lose one's father. He was one of the best men on the course I ever saw. Don't you think you need another lad around your stable, sir? Why, I don't know, I'm sure. A boy can't support his mother unless he has something to do, can he? No, sir. Where are you now? We have a little room downtown, sir. But the chap what owns it says we'll have to hustle around and get the rent or out we goes. Well, that is a financial crisis, isn't it? I ain't just sure what that is, sir, but I knows it's pretty hard. They all are, these financial troubles. McMasters, you might run down with this lad and see what he says is true. Pay up the rent for a few weeks and then take him to the stables and get something for him to do. He may make a rider yet. And the young diplomatist turned to his letters once more. McMasters found everything at Billy's home as the boy had stated. When it became known at the stables that Mr. Bennett himself had engaged the lad, he became an object of considerable envy among the little family of stable boys, rubbers down, and exercises. It was soon discovered, however, that Billy was, as he had said, handy with the horses. And one day when the owner visited the stables, he told the trainer that Billy might have inherited certain talents from his father. Billy was a grateful little chap, and next to his mother, he loved his young master with a devotion which was more as sincere as it was unknown to the owner of Sulcer. A splendid mare was Sulcer, and great things were expected of her. A curious affection had sprung up between the mare and Billy, to whose care the animal had been assigned. What hours Billy spent in fussing over the thoroughbred's toilet, and then the glory of the early morning exercise spin and the warming up before Humber the jockey got round to put in the fine work on the mare's training. It was the evening before the great race for the LaRue Stakes, and all the town seemingly was waiting on the result. Sulcer was a big favourite, with David only a point less popular, Rainbow next, Maxareel next, and a big field of outsiders. Billy was asleep, curled up like a little ball in his bed, when he awoke suddenly to find Mr. Bennett bending over him. Don't be alarmed, my boy, said his employer, as the lad rose up quickly with a tremor of apprehension. Do you suppose that you could ride Sulcer in the race tomorrow? Billy was as much surprised to speak, and can only gaze open-mouthed. What do you think? I could ride her, you know, sir. But I don't know whether I could ride her to win or not, sir. I'd like to try, sir. I'd try hard, bloomin' hard, sir. It seems no one can ride Seltzer unless she is well acquainted with him, and that for 6 months only you and Humber have had much to do with her. We knows each other, Seltzer and me, do all right, sir. She's a wonder, sir. Seltzer is why, that hoss is why, and Billy paused for the want of fitting analogy. Then you think she'd do as much for you as she would for anyone? I'm sure she will, sir. But Mr. Humber, is he ill? Well, no, not yet. But I'm going to see him, and he's going to decide not to ride. He's been placing bets against the mare, and that looks very much as if he means to lose the race. I'll be able to fix everything all right tonight. I shall depend on you, Billy. You'll do your best for me, won't you? Indeed I will, sir. And I'll ask Seltzer to do her best too. All right. I trust you remember. Now you won't see me until after the race. These are the only instructions for you to remember. Let her go for the first quarter. Then if you are well up among the leaders, hold her back until you round into the straight. Then push her to win. Do you understand? Yes, sir. The morning of the race dawned bright, and crowds gathered to see the great event. They're off. The flag had dropped almost before Billy had expected, and the race for the LaRue Stakes had begun. At the first turn it was Rainbow, Max Ariel, David and Seltzer, with a field bunch close behind. Billy drew a poor position at the start, but has pushed Seltzer to the front in an almost miraculous way. He is over the mare's neck and talking to her. Run, darling, run. We've got to win. We've just got to. Dad's watching us, you know. Go, high, high, go. And the mare seems to understand, for she almost flies past David, past Rainbow, past Max Ariel, a length ahead as the quarter pole flashes by. Now, little by little, the mare drops back again. Billy is following instructions. The terrible pace is beginning to affect the temporary leaders. Max Ariel and Rainbow are being outfooted by the rushing David. Now they are near the last turn. But what black nose is this which has come up to Seltzer's flank? Billy glances around. It's Mortality, a rank outsider. Inch by inch the new mare is gaining. It must be now or never. He calls to the mare, taps her lightly, feels her respond as she straightens out under him. They gain a foot or two, but still Mortality hangs round, close at Billy's saddle, and David's tail brushes Seltzer's nose. It isn't enough. Something must be done quick. Forgive me, old gal, almost sobs Billy as he raises the whip and brings the lash sharply down on the mare's flanks. With a maddened bound, she springs forward, her ears laid back and her nose stretched out in line with her neck. She is gaining inch by inch. A few bounds and it is neck and neck. The post is terribly near. Whoever wins will win by a short head. Suddenly something happens. A nurse girl with a child down by the fence has become too deeply absorbed, and her little charge has toddled out onto the track and stands pitilessly helpless right in the path of the flying horses. Billy sees it all in an instant, the horrified expression on the nurse girl's face and the dazed look of the little toddler on the track ahead. He can guide Seltzer around the child, he thinks, but nothing can save the baby from the rushing field behind. What can he do? A single false move and the race is lost. And to win the race means so much. But something in the appealing face of the baby makes him think of a little sister asleep in a tiny English churchyard so far away over the water. He can't help it. He must try to save the child. With one hard pull on the reins, he drops them, and with a cry to Seltzer, he slips his left foot through the stirrup, draws the slender iron up to his knee, kicks his other foot clear, throws himself quickly to the right, straight down over the horse's side. He thinks he can hang by one knee, head down, his arms outstretched, and his little body swinging wildly against the racer's side of every bound. Salsa falters in her race and draws back. With a sweep of his arms, Billy grabs the little form close and lifts the baby clear off the ground as the horses hurl by. The strain is a terrible one, and he can only drag himself up a little way. His leg is almost broken from the sharp stirrup. He hears the shouts of the crowd. David sweeps by a winner. On they go for what seems a mile, but is in reality only a few yards. Salsa slackens and stops. A dozen stable boys are springing at the mare's head. Someone snatches the baby from Billy's arms, and he drops down and steals hurriedly away to a quiet corner of the stables. It has all come over him now. Salsa has lost. His dreams of making a name for himself are gone. Mr. Burnett will never allow him to ride again. Sinking down on the store, he buries his face and sobs as though his heart would break. Well, young man, it's Mr. Burnett. Billy does not look up. I'm sorry I lost the race, sir. I couldn't help it, you know, sir. She'd have been killed, the baby. Well, I should say she would. And how you weren't killed beats me. I'm sorry I didn't win, sir. He what? Didn't win? Why, boy, I'd rather have my jockey do what you've done than have my horses win a dozen races. A dozen, yes, 100. But the money, sir, what's been lost? Not a copper except the purse. All bets against Salsa declared off. Come along up into the stand. The crowd are howling for you. And Billy went. He has ridden many winners since then, but he has never aroused such wild enthusiasm as on the day when Salsa lost the LaRue Stakes.